My name's David and I'm in charge of developing fabric and wallpaper here at Andrew Martin. So we're all about design. We've been doing wallpapers since the mid-80s and we've always tried to develop and generate new exciting products. We're using lots of digital technology. It uses much less heat, much less power, much less water, so it's much kinder to the environment. And all of our products, we're proud to say, are printed here in the UK. Today, we partnered up with a great company called Wells Interiors, who are a specialist wallpaper installer, to show you some clever techniques on how to install our wallpapers. We do get a lot of questions from people, especially when they're about to hang some of their products or they've got questions before they're choosing a product, which product might be right for them. So we're just sort of aiming to set people's minds at rest that actually it's something you shouldn't be scared of and something which you can use very easily in your home.
I'm Mick Wells, I'm the founder and owner of Wells Interiors. We're specialist wallpaper installers based in London. We're really excited to be here today partnering with Andrew Martin to answer some of the frequently asked questions about wallpaper installation. How much wallpaper will I need? Probably a lot more than what you think. When we're contracting for wall covering, we don't normally take out the windows or the doors. We want to give ourselves some options to be able to balance walls. So I'd say two things. One, ideally, get your installer or your decorator to quantify for you. It always makes things a bit easier. And two, you have to, for rule of thumb, allow at least 15% more than the square meterage of the wall. Which paste should I use? It depends very much on the wall covering. The one that we use the most of is Bartling Ready Mix Professional. It's a red top, so it's a medium grade paste. We find that has got great open time and it's just a really good all-round paste. But the other two or three that we used is a blue top, which is a heavy grade adhesive, which you use for heavy wall coverings and vinyls. It's got a very low water content. And at the other end of the scale is the lightweight paste, which is traditionally yellow top. And we would use that also on traditional English pulp wall coverings and sort of lighter weight papers. We don't use flake paste at all. Do the walls need prepping and do all walls need lining? They definitely need prepping. So again, it depends on what wall covering you are using. A lot of times with the English pulps, we would always line behind them just because they expand when paste touches the back of them, and then they can slowly shrink a tiny bit, and we find that paper sticks best to paper, so we'd always line the walls behind hanging a traditional English pulp, which is maybe busts the myth that people think that lining paper is there to hide defects in the walls. It's really not. It depends on what the wall covering's going on top of it. If you're hanging vinyls, vinyls install best over a hard primed wall. So we wouldn't line the walls when we're hanging vinyls. And as far as prepping goes, it really, again, it depends what sort of wallpaper is going on the walls. If you're installing any sort of metallic or shiny wallpaper, you really want that wall to be mirror smooth. Otherwise, it could potentially highlight defects in the wall. A mist coat is an undercoat that's normally watered down 50% emulsion, 50% water, and it would go on bare plaster, and it's to seal the walls and also to identify any humps and hollows on the plastering, and then the decorator can come back and fill any indentations and then spot prime over the top. But it's a really important process that you put the mist coats applied properly. A common problem is that the mist coats put on there too thick or not applied at all, and it's literally just kicking a problem down the road. You can have a problem 6 months down the line simply because the mist coat hasn't penetrated the plaster. Is colour variation acceptable? Yes. In grass cloths, a lot of hand-dyed silks, things like that. So natural products, it is acceptable. To what degree can be a bit subjective, being honest. A lot of the time, if you start installing a wall and we notice colour variation, It's kind of the nuance of the installation, but if you carry on installing the wall, it can balance itself out and then look right once the actual wall's finished. But yeah, on certain products you do need to expect a colour variation. So you can get slight mismatches in the corner. It depends on how straight the corner is. That's number one. Whether there's a bulge or what they call a belly in the wall coming into the corner or coming out of the corner. Those three things, for all the will in the world, you can still have a slight mismatch. That's just the nature of it. And you can get around that. I mean, you can applique in some pattern, you can paint in some pattern, but there is a chance that you might have a small mismatch in the corner. The goal is always to match it perfectly out of the corner, and we've got a few tricks to be able to do that, and most of the time we achieve that. But yeah, depending on the age of the building and the condition of the corner, you may still get a slight mismatch. When you're installing in a room that's got a continuous running pattern and there's no obvious break, you have to make a decision on where the pattern's going to die, what they call a kill point. Normally that's tucked behind a door or tucked somewhere in a not very obvious place. And again, that's signed off with the client at the start of the installation, so the client's very much aware of what the outcome is going to be and where the mismatch is going to be before you start. What we say when using wallpaper in the bathroom is it's all about ventilation. So up-spec the extractor fan, essentially. What's the usage of the bathroom? If it's a really busy household and the bathroom is getting used constantly, the extractor fan, there's not much ventilation in there, then we would probably advise against it, to be honest. So it depends on usage and it depends on ventilation. What you can also do if you do decide to use wallpaper in your bathroom is to coat it with Decorator's matte varnish. A couple of coats, and that just gives it a bit more protection. So when it comes to booking in your installation, we would say put it right at the end of the project and give us as much notice as possible. Ideally, it should be looked at as FF&E. Furniture, fittings and equipment. When you're doing a wall covering installation, you're not going to be making much dust, if any. There's going to be no mess. We want to work in a clean environment. You get the best finish like that, so it has to happen right at the end of the project. If you're choosing something that's custom or bespoke, just remember lead time. Some of the brands that supply these sort of wall coverings, they can have a lead time anywhere up to 24 weeks. So you want to get the installer involved very early to be able to survey the room. Inevitably, the room's not quite ready to be surveyed because you need architraves and certain details in place to be able to do that. So then it's a case of working with the builder on site and the architect and finding out exactly where features in the room are going to be, and making sure that someone is taking responsibility for that and will sign off where, for example, the fireplace is going to be, even though it's not installed. It's a bit more straightforward if it's just a finished room and nothing's been changed in the room. But again, it's just to be aware that there's normally long lead times, and if you're thinking about doing it, you want to get the installer involved very quickly. Can we cope from plans? Yes, but we may also need elevations with that as well. Depending on the client, we will ask for photos, videos of the space, and if we've got scaled plans and elevations, yes, we can quote very accurately from that. And yes, we do provide design miniatures. That obviously needs a site visit. We would probably take that in the process of we would sign off costs before going to site. So we would give you an estimate, which is normally fairly accurate before we go to site, make sure the client's happy, and then go to site and survey the room and provide a miniature. So what's the installation going to cost? Again, it comes down to the type of wall covering being used, where it is, both geographically and whereabouts it is in the property. So for example, on a double height staircase, you're going to need 2 people installing it, so you've got higher costs. We've got a pricing guide on our website. I would encourage everyone to have a look at that because that gives square meterage rates and the factors that come into play. If you're going to invest in a beautiful high value wall covering, it's our view that you would get a specialist on board to install it and protect that investment. We like to say, if you owned a Ferrari, you would take it to the Ferrari garage. You wouldn't take it to the corner garage. You wouldn't get anyone to work on your Ferrari. The same attitude should be taken if you're going to invest in a high-end, beautiful wall covering. Get the specialists to install it. If you've had complications with your install, someone's tried to install it and it hasn't gone that well, yes, we can help. Depending on how bad it is, sometimes you just have to start again, which is a shame. It's obviously a cost and time. Other times, part of the room can be done again. The rule of thumb though is with wall covering, it's quite hard to snag. So you want to get it right, and you want to get it right first time. That's really the message to come across. But yes, essentially we can help. Inevitably, most of the time it's starting again and doing it again. Our guarantee is that we will get the wall covering looking as good as it can be inside the limitations of the wall covering, inside the limitations of the substrate that it's been installed on. So what that means is if we are hanging a grass cloth, we are not going to get the joins invisible. You're going to see a joint. That's the nature of the product. But what we will do is it will be a tidy, clean join and look exactly how it should look. And the limitations around the substrate means that if we are installing on a wall that's maybe a little bit bumpy, not that smooth, we would pre-warn the client beforehand, and if the client still wanted to go ahead, that's the limitations around the substrate. If we failed to come up to standard, we will put that right at our cost and time.